The questions you always had. The answers you were never given. The place to seek the truth. Welcome to Veritas.
It is difficult to believe that our planet has been weaponized before our very eyes. But that is exactly what has happened. First, we were seduced by the convenience of a wireless world. Then, atmospheric weather experimentation in the guise of climate change converted the air we breathe into an antenna. Now, the geoengineering we've been subjected to for 2 decades is being normalized as the Star Wars space fence that rises around and within us. Greetings, I'm your host, Mel Fabregas. And if you're new to the Veritas family, welcome home. To listen to tonight's full interview and all of our material, just click on the subscribe button. And don't forget to visit the Veritas store for MMS, hemp oil, pure organic sulfur, and much more. And if you want to get in touch with me, want to be a guest on this radio program, have a guest suggestion, or have feedback, just click on the contact button of our website at veritasradio.com. And tonight's special guest is a veteran of this program, Elana Freeland, a Waldorf school pioneer, teacher, lecturer, storyteller, and writer. Tonight, we're going to be discussing her second book. We discussed the first one last time she was here 2.5 years ago. It's titled Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. Her website is elanafreeland.com, and it's also linked on ours. And directly from Olympia, Washington, I'd like to welcome Elana Freeland. Elana, welcome back. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me, Mel. So good to hear your wonderful voice.
Likewise. It's always a pleasure. And I had to talk to you because every time you and I talk, or we correspond via email every few weeks, and you always have something new to tell me. And I thought, 2.5 years is enough. Should be every year. But 2.5 years is too much. There's a lot that you're working on. You have a third book coming up soon. Why don't you just give us a synopsis of what you're working on recently, the latest Rabbit Hole?
Well, it is very much connected to the previous 2 books. I mean, the first book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, came out in 2014 and was really just a compendium of how far we had gone in the sort of internet movement opposing geoengineering. And at that point, the word geoengineering was not even being bandied about. So from that book, I realized, thanks to Billy Hayes, the HAARP man, Billy worked on many of the microwave phased array antennas and towers during his career as a tower erector. And he pointed me in the direction that the chemtrails, ionospheric heaters, towers were heading in, which was the space fence. And the space fence goes all the way back to the Reagan administration in the U.S., where Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and Dick Cheney, it's under the Strategic Defense Initiative. So that somehow went black for years, for a couple of administrations. And then came the ionizing of the sky, and that was through Bernard Eastland's HAARP patents. The HAARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska. And it was through Eastland's patent that they were able to do a lot of experiments with the ionosphere around the Earth, far, far up above, and find a way to sort of create a mini ionosphere here on planet Earth. And it was the ionizing of the atmosphere, which means making it electrical, making it like an antenna, making it very, very conductive with lots of nano-sized heavy metals, and lots of microwaves and radio frequency waves. So the atmosphere was changed. And once the atmosphere was changed, and meanwhile, nobody down here knows it. Nobody's being told. Then once it was ionized, they were able to resurrect the space fence. And that is an SDI, the SDI program. And the space fence itself is run by Lockheed Martin, which is number one in the world as a military contractor, a weapons maker, everything, security apparatus, you name it, Lockheed Martin is into it. And it owns the patents, just as Raytheon, another big weapons dealer, owned the patents for HARP. So there's a group that's sort of moving toward what they call full spectrum dominance. And that means lockdown on planet Earth. And the Space Fence is the second book, the 2018 book. I go deeply into the Space Fence, show how it's set up on the ground in the near-Earth orbit, talk about the ring being formed around the equator of the planet, a ring filled with heavy metal particulates and chemicals that are really form the sandwiching above the Earth, along with the ground-based radar installations, cell phone towers, cell phones, all the way through. Anything electromagnetic is now in the Space Fence. And what we're now hearing are terms like Internet of Things. So now they're uploading many of these devices to the Internet for total control, centralized. And so all of that has been the adventure of the last several years for me. And then when I did the second book, then it became obvious to me with the advent of 5G, the Internet of Things, Elon Musk talking about AI and this fiber that is supposed to be in our brain, the neural mesh that will help us compete with AI, etc. Then I began to realize that this is all about transhumanism, about changing us from the outside to the in, not by getting us to go and get vaccinations as adults or go into clinics and take certain pills or undergo certain devices like fMRIs or whatever, but that it was going to come from outside of us by weaponizing the entire environment.
Now let's go step by step. Forgive me for interjecting, but what you said about the ionizing the sky, changing the sky, the atmosphere, and I'm just wondering, if we have a Van Allen belt, 400 to 36,000 miles or 640 to 58,000 kilometers above us, surrounding us, why do we need an ionized sky or changing the atmosphere?
The atmosphere has become a lab and an antenna. And that's exactly it, is the Van Allen belts, which, as you know, Mel, were blasted to kingdom come back in the 50s by atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs.
The Starfish Prime Test and Operation Fishbowl.
Yes. In fact, a new Van Allen belt was created by that ridiculous, dangerous nonsense. But what they really want is control over the Earth, and the full spectrum dominance really has to start here. And why that is, I always quote what I read in Joseph P. Farrell's book, Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, in 2012. He talks about a Soviet astronomer named Nikolai Kardashev and how Kardashev pronounced 3 phases of technological achievement for any civilization aspiring to a space age. And of course, Catherine Austin Fitz, the investment analyst, is a big fan of my books and a friend. I would call her a friend. Very much a cohort in activism. And Catherine has many times spoken of this breakaway civilization and the secret space program. And that really is what the whole Space Fence lockdown is born out of, is the secret space program that trillions of our dollars have disappeared into over the past 2 decades, which is about the length of the geoengineering programs that I'm following. So when Kardashev said that, if you're going to have a real space age, you have to do these 3 things. The first is full spectrum dominance of the planet, total planetary control. Now, you might think that means total control of perhaps the atmosphere, the ground, but it really also means the people and all of life. I mean, it means total. And this is the megalomania that has seized those who carry this very vast ancient dream of being as gods on the planet. So they're working now on that very first phase that Kardashev names, the full spectrum dominance, planetary control. And that has to be done in layers. And so I've been fortunate to be paying enough attention, because I keep writing these books, and you have to pay attention when you're writing a book, of seeing layer by layer by layer by layer. I mean, it's like spelled out right in front of me. It's impossible to miss, even if the headlines are not about it, even if I don't have a television, never owned one, never will, and I'm not seeing the 6 o'clock news. It is obvious that they are after full spectrum dominance over the planet. Second phase, they've already started working on in the atmosphere that is now ionized, and that's control over one's star and its systems, and that's our sun. So now we're in a so-called solar minimum, and they are working at various parts of the geoengineering agendas to actually control the phases of the sun, including any of the usual, the CMEs, the Birkeland currents that connect our planet with the sun, etc. So that's already underway. And to do that, they're having to do a lot of experiments in the atmosphere on plasma. And plasma is the 4th state of matter. And there are many, many experiments going on to create life with plasma, to use plasma as an energy source, and therefore as a weapon. So that's all going on. Then the third phase, to my knowledge, we have not begun this yet. It's all fantasy at this point, in my opinion. And that would include the trip to Mars and the colonizing of this and that, all that. That's all in the fantasy Operation Bluebird manual of the ancient past. But that third phase is control over one's galaxy and its systems. So in my mind, that's what they're working on. And so at first, when I realized what we were breathing in and eating and drinking in our water was from the chemical trails above, at first I thought we were just collateral damage. That, we need all these nanoparticles to be floating in the air constantly so that when we zap them with our microwaves and our radio frequency, it's going to ionize it, and it'll be battery ready for all of our wireless operations that we're doing now to just cover Kardashev's 2 first phases of a space age. But no, we are not just collateral damage. We are actually a very primary experiment going on. And what they're making sure we're breathing in on a nanoscale, remember, at 1 nano equals 1 billionth of a meter. So what we're breathing in is very much about experimenting with us playing the role of the host, a variety of engineered, neuroengineered, bioengineered entities that some of which they do need for big data. They're collecting lots and lots and lots of data from the environment. They lay a lot of sensors, a lot of measuring devices, a lot of microcomputers, microprocessors up in the upper atmosphere, the stratosphere. And then some of it gets captured in the turning of the Earth, but a lot of it falls down to us here in the Schumann trough. And so we breathe it all in, and then it starts communicating from inside our bloodstream, goes into the lungs, goes into the bloodstream, easily bypasses the blood-brain barrier because it is all on a nanoscale and even a sub-nanoscale, a pico scale. So we're doing all this without noticing. Our health is getting worse. We're getting all these autoimmune conditions. They're all being diagnosed as separate diseases when really they're not. They're just symptoms of the same thing. They are undermining our immune system purposely in order to prepare us for the advent of transhumanism, which is based on what they call the BMI-BCI model. That's brain-machine interface, brain-computer interface. That model is the one intended for us. And so now we're like chickens with our heads cut off. We're racing this way and that and this. It's vaccines, it's GMOs, it's electromagnetics, it's everything. And when, I feel kind of ridiculous, Mel, because when I look at all these separate, so-called separate issues, they're actually all fed by this one geoengineering gigantic issue that I am writing about, because all of these things are not just accidental. They're not just about profit and greed, etc. They actually have been chosen at multiple levels as those things which would keep undermining our society, undermining our immune system, so that we will turn automatically to this idea of merging with the machine that can then help us to handle everything we're undergoing. That's how I see it.
And that is exactly what I see too. I mean, first, before we had DARPA, a lot of people don't know this, but I had friends who used the internet in the 80s. And I used to say, what is this? Oh, let me just show you. And they had these little IBM, I even forgot what they were, but they were just going through the internet. Then we got it in the 1990s. And now we cannot live without it. And our children and their phones, they're stuck to them. You remove them for more than 5 minutes and they become depressed. So I don't doubt that in the future, if they're offered, in the future when they become young adults, by the way, we have this little chip we're going to implant behind your ear. And if you think about something, you're going to get an answer right in your brain. You think that any child today will say no to that?
Yeah, but Mel, I'm sorry. I have worse news for you than that. It doesn't even take volition now. I'm saying we are breathing them in.
I see.
We are breathing in programmed entities that are transceivers. They're in touch with what we call fusion centers in the United States. They're in touch with what I call the laptop boys, sipping their organic orange juice in Colorado Springs while they have everybody and everything they want up on their monitors. This is a done deal because they found this aerial delivery system. And, they were writing about this in a very famous document. I was just today writing a bit on it. It was called, Futures 2025, put out by the U.S. Air Force. And it was in 1996 that they came out with that. We have referred to it on the internet, those of us pursuing these similar trails, for many years. And when I read the fine print of those documents that came out in that Futures study in 1996, I find exact descriptions of us breathing what is being aerially delivered to our brains and our bodies. I mean, this has been the plan all along. And there was, of course, nothing democratic about it. And it was not, if you looked at it from the point of view of some of our legal our laws that have to do with using human subjects and needing consent, etc., you'll see that if you can prove that it's an experiment, those laws don't apply. You are now experimenting to see how this works. And so there was never a reason to seek congressional approval of these aerosol delivery programs. They simply were done. At first, they were using the fuel itself. And then we all had big arguments. I don't know if you remember that, but we in the so-called anti-geoengineering or anti-chemtrails movement would argue about, well, is there a supplementary system? I mean, you see those pylons under the wings, you see these tubes sticking out from here and there. And finally, now we actually don't argue over that anymore. There is a supplementary system. And in fact, most of the releases that happen in jets, whether they're commercial or military, are controlled from the ground. And now they even have a cloaking that makes it so you don't even see a jet plane. You may not even see a trail being left. You may see a sort of vague obscuration going on in the sky following a linear pattern for a little while until it branches out into the usual cirrus cloud cover that is really not at all moisture. I keep trying to tell people these are not real clouds up there. These are plasma clouds, and they are being microwaved and used, yes, to heat for various magnetic fields that are being put up there for various agendas, various experiments. But I mean, when you look at the sky, at least when I look at the sky, I see a huge laboratory. And that's what they're doing. And of course, one of the biggest covers, because it's in a way not even a cover, it's true, but it's also a cover, is the using the weather as a cover, the so-called climate change cover story, the global warming cover story, both of which have a lot of truth in them, but are heading for a dead end because never once are they mentioning the military agendas behind this climate change, this global warming. And so it's a huge drama. And it's, as you know, you being European, that we have been the dupes of bread and circuses for many, many political regimes, hundreds of years, thousands of years. And now they control these huge conglomerate corporate entities that utilize governments like tissues, and that we're being again fed a circus and promised bread while we're sort of oohing and eyeing over the circus. This is nothing new in a way, in Ecclesiastes' sense. But on the other hand, never to my knowledge, and I'm a real student of history, never to my knowledge has such a huge, vast experiment taken place in which all of humanity is involved because we're all breathing the same air. I mean, we have to all breathe the same air. So,
and that's the question I get all the time, Elana. People say to me, well, if this is so bad, Mel, the people who are spraying it or the people behind the scenes who are in charge of this project, aren't they breathing the same things? Yes,
they are. But do they have the cure for themselves? Do they have the amazing filter systems in their homes?
Antidotes.
Do they have their water system completely under control and with ozone, et cetera, ozone treatments? So I really can't compare myself with the elites because they live such a different life from how I live. I know some things about this, that it operates on a slow cook. So yes, some people suffer right away. As adults since this program began. I mean, I think of the Morgellons victims, right? The people with these terrible suppurating open sores that never heal, with little colorful wires sticking out of them and going nuts when they get near anything electromagnetic like their cell phone. So there are people who suffer more readily, just as it's true with electrosensitivity. We always have that. Some of us have more vulnerability, some of us have less, but it is slowly undermining our immune system because the immune system simply does not recognize this man-made technology. I mean, a lot of these entities, these nanobots, these fullerenes, these carbon tubule nanobots and nanosensors, our body doesn't recognize them, so it doesn't fight them. It doesn't do anything about them, and they lodge in our tissues and head through the blood-brain barrier, where they will be used by, in my opinion, the 5G, because the 5G is, as I say in the second book, it is the linchpin of this entire space fence lockdown system, and it will by being so in tune with the so-called Internet of Things that daily has millions of devices being signed up to work on the Internet principle, the 5G will have this whole beyond a battalion of devices that will give it energy for its operations in the home, in the business place, on the streets of the smart cities, doesn't matter where. And that is how they're going to contact and give marching orders to the nanobots in our bloodstream and brain. This is how it's going to be done. We don't need to go in and get an implant. I'm sure that there will be national leaders who will have very sophisticated implants by which they will be run remotely. But for the masses, we are breathing in our slave masters and handlers. And those will be run by AI systems. And those systems will also be able to reprogram these entities in us for whatever they wish. If it's our emotions, if it's our thoughts, no problem. Because for years since MK Ultra, there has been an avid, determined attempt, and I think it has been successful, to collect all the signatures of all human emotions, all human states, psychological states, and consciousness states, and that these frequencies are now known. And wow, they must be so valuable, Mel. I mean, I would think that gold itself can't buy these unless you're an insider and you behave yourself, and then you may get a piece of the action through these frequencies, which will give you control over everyone around you and further than that. I mean, that's how I see the virtual world that is being promised by Singularity University, Facebook, Google, YouTube, all the mafia, all the telecom mafia. They are certain that this is going to work. And knowing how hypnotic most people are, always have been, but lately, wow. Lately, I'm amazed. In fact, my hypothesis is that, see, I don't own a cell phone. I always I always joke with people that I'm not that important, that the government knows where I am 24/7. But really, the reason I don't own a cell phone is the same reason I don't own a television, because these are weapons. These are military weapons. We got them from the military, just like this computer I'm now sort of chained to. I had this I could not do without if I'm going to write books. And all of these things came to us via the military, which has all our frequencies, and we have none of theirs. So I think we need to really kind of wake up and take stock of how militarized this technology is. Yes, it's convenient. Yes, it's entertaining. Yes, people are addicted to it and get endorphins from, knowing that someone's thinking about them or whatever. But basically, these are weaponized, and any of them can turn on us on a dime. So if we can come to terms with that, accept our condition, then we can do some things and start testing some of our own models of defense that will perhaps save our children and our grandchildren. That's kind of the direction I'm going in now. Is yes, I must explain all this stuff and show how it works together. And then, people are going to have to form their own communities. They're going to have to really wake up, or they're going to be pulled under. There's no other way that I see. Going to the legislature, no, I don't think so. Taking them to court, no, I don't think so. Waving signs in the street, no, I don't think so. I think these are things of an era that is passing, an era in which law meant something. This is a technocracy. This is an oligarchic technocracy run by some very savvy technocrats. And they are not the least interested in law, nor are they interested in morality. Anything from the past of what has made the human being somewhat civilized, they are not interested in it. And so I accept that. And, the enemy gets to define itself. And I have to first understand the enemy. I mean, I learned this from General George Patton, whom I used to admire greatly. I read his autobiography. I read books about him. He was very clear that in order to fight a good war, you have got to know the enemy as they see themselves, not just as you see them. And that is what I try to do, so that I can understand how to fight. Because this is a different fight. This is not a political fight. This is not even a technological fight, because they know lots of technology I have no idea of. But the one thing I have is an understanding of what it means to be a human being. And for me, some people may think we're just meat sacks and everything's arbitrary. Not me. As you know, I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner. I've been very affected by Rudolf Steiner. I've been very affected by reading many, many histories of Western Europe, Eastern Europe, of the United States, etc. And I've paid very close attention to something that is so human that it's poignant. It draws tears to the eyes when you encounter it, which is rare. And that is a noble, great human being. They are very rare, because it is not easy to be noble and great. One must really control oneself and have a discipline. And then the word discipline is the word disciple. One must be a disciple of one's greater self, higher self. And a lot of people choose pleasure, the pleasure-pain route over that, the sort of see what happens route. But not me. I really working very hard on this 24/7, because I see now that the human future is not certain at all now, Mel. And we who know this, we must really gird up our loins and take this on, because it doesn't take that many. This is not about democracy, the demos, having all the people behind you. No, this is a qualitative defense that can be done by very few people. If those people are dedicated to salvaging what really makes someone human, in the greatest of senses, not the lowest of senses, because the human being spans a tremendous territory between the divine and the demonic. No question about it. There is no neutral, though, in the human being. So people who like to fool themselves that they're neutral, they're not divine or demonic, not so. A choice has been made, and once a choice is made, there is a color to the field that one has chosen. So this is kind of how I run my life. Yes, I may sound like I'm living mythically. Well, I do live mythically. I mean, I see myself as being on the front lines. I'm in a war. And I see comrades are dropping. You know, we've had a few deaths. We've lost a few people because of evil on the move against them. And there's really nothing I can do for them. And I'm sad over that. But onward we go. As one after another drops, it could be me next. Who knows? You just have to play the role that is given you when you come into this earth life. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm grateful for it, because it's using my skills. I have skills with words. Writing, speaking, etc. I lay them at the feet of the future of humanity. When human beings, as Rudolf Steiner says, there will come a day when you will not be able to sleep knowing that someone is in pain. If
Absolutely.
you can imagine that.
No, those are great words. Recently, I've learned a few acronyms, a few words. You probably, obviously, I think you know them. SMART. Everybody, SMART things. Secret militarized armaments in residential technology.
Yeah, I like that.
Digitocracy, the merger of technology and government. And then, not too long ago, somebody forwarded this link. Folks, if you Google the word Homo mutatus, it's going to take you to a website which is owned by the United Nations, the World Meteorological Organization. It's the Cloud Atlas. And you'll see right there, Homo mutatus, a new type of cloud. They haven't had a new type of cloud for a while. But if you see the image, you know exactly where that cloud came from. But the way they explain it, obviously they tell you that it's a natural cirrus cloud, but it has certain components to it that makes it unique. So look at the name. I don't speak that much Latin, but Homo seems to me human. And right. Mutatus, could this be that they're in your face telling you, we are mutating the sky?
Yep. That's what it is. And it's so interesting that it's the clouds. And if I could get esoteric for just a moment, the fact that it's in the clouds, I mean, I'm not familiar with Christian literature that much, but I do know that at some point, Jesus Christ said that he came in the clouds and that he would come again as he left, and he left in the clouds. Well, what does that mean? What is a cloud? Well, a cloud, yes, it's moisture and particulates, but what is that whole realm of clouds? It's ether. It's the ether that is a concept of energy that was banned in the early 1920s from the scientific community. I mean, until the late 20s, Albert Einstein was still using the concept of the ether as a universal substance that precedes the formation of plasma, which precedes the formation of matter. And for all this, you need an electrical happening of some sort, that the ether ends up being electrically zapped. Then the plasma arises as a gas, a fiery gas. Then next, matter begins to form, either a solar system or a planet or a star. So ether was completely accepted until the 1920s. I cover this in chapter 2 in the Under an Ionized Sky. I mean, it's just an amazing, dramatic story in which a scientific cabal of some sort banned summarily the use of the term ether. And from then on, the term ether became something that, no, you don't use that term if you're a true scientist. It became a term only used by those involved in spiritualist movements, like an ether body. And so this concept, these concepts have been sort of stripped and recomposed and changed, morph into other things, all done by an elite scientific community, seemingly not very dedicated to life on the planet and the human consciousness, it seems to me. So, when I hear things like what you're saying about these acronyms and what they really mean, it's true. It's hard for us to imagine that the elites that we have put on pedestals for so many centuries, that they could turn into something which is not very smart, is not, it may be clever, but it's not very smart, and it's certainly not very intelligent, but it has been packaged and taken captive by those who seek to drag us down to our lowest elements, such as caring about one's career at the expense of humanity, caring about money at the expense of our families, ourselves. However you want to look at it, we have got to look morally at things. I don't know how to live without looking morally at things. And now they're trying to make it sound like the word moral came straight out of religion. Not so. Not so. Religion is something different.
Religion hijacked morality.
Yes. And science, in its desire to seem objective, has thrown the baby out with the bath. Ever since, and I would say ever since the end of the 19th century into the 20th century, when materialism was in its great heyday, there was so big black lines were being drawn between, for example, I always think of this one, physics and metaphysics. There really is no black line there. And now that I have educated myself on metaphysics and how much physics are in it, it simply needs to be clarified so that we can expand our field of being able to think about this particular problem I'm bringing today, this full spectrum dominance over the planet's life and vitality. This seems to me that it's time for us to really take in a different language, a different thinking, not to really look at the possibility that we have been sold a bill of goods since our very first day of going to school, that we can't just believe everything we've been taught and wait for Godot, wait for Martin Luther King, wait for the second coming of Jesus. We can't just wait and still hold the same old thought forms by which our masters of the universe are really usurping our best qualities of being human. This is the problem. We need the courage to not wait for the experts to tell us what is true. We need the courage to do our own work, and that's what I do. I don't have a PhD in physics. In fact, I would go so far as to say there is no place in this country, barring perhaps Johns Hopkins and maybe a couple of others, there is no place I could go to learn about this plasma physics, this astrophysics that I am learning is being done chemically and with nanotechnology. I don't think there's anywhere where I could really get a degree in these studies, because they are unfolding daily. Very, very interesting. As a very good researcher, and I have a master's in historiography. I know how to research, but a lot of the stuff I need to research, there are no books on it, Mel. There's nothing. I sit and I contemplate a huge collage of data to see how all the pieces fit together, because I don't even have the picture of how they fit together. But I have to give it a good go, since I have that kind of mind anyway that builds big pictures. I need to do my best and hope that someone who can see even better than I comes along after me and does something more marvelous and more wonderful for the people.
Now, here's the problem. Since when I say they, I put quotes, they own the syllabus for most educational institutions. Let's take the medical industry, for example. Do you think they're going to talk about nutrition? Medical doctors get 1 hour. Do you think they're going to talk the possibility of finding the cures for cancer, for heart disease, for for autism, for HIV? I mean, supposedly they're finding the cure of that now, but for the rest of them, you don't see that. What you're discussing, you're not going to be able to find that anywhere, because it goes against the status quo. But let me ask you this. When they do all these things, ionizing the sky and trying to create, a Borg, if you will, is there a correlation between all of this and 23andMe and Ancestry and all these outfits out there that are asking for your DNA to tell you where you came from and all those things? Is there a correlation here?
Oh, yes. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say they all get together as conspirers in a room together and decide who's going to take what and do what. But I would say that the reward punishment system that capitalism can have easily from just a few people at the very top of the pyramid of capitalism works wonders for controlling what is rewarded and what isn't, like Ancestry.com. Now that is a very good one to name, because it's certainly the genetics and the genome. These are important things to the transhumanist futures.
Now, you know who's behind that, right?
Well, what, Gates?
No, it's the Church of the Latter Days, the Mormons.
Oh, yes, of course it would be. Yes. And I think that many of these, like the LGBT movement, the trying to confuse youth regarding their sexuality, regarding whatever, would have led to purposeful estrogen being put into large city water supplies. Absolutely.
Well, you have plastics, you have soy, and it makes you wonder if you had to find an end game as to why they're doing this. Let's take what you're saying, the LGBTQ, and again, I always say it, no criticizing of homosexuals and the trans. If they want to do that, that's fine. But let's take the trans for a moment. It's 0.5 of 1% of the population. But they want us to change our lifestyle to arrange theirs. And I find that to be unfair. I mean, I'm all for, if you want to be who you want to be, go ahead, do it. But don't change my life. Don't shove down the lifestyles down my throat. If I'm different than you, I respect who you are, but don't try to change me. But anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent there.
Well, and I would come in from a different vantage point. I mean, there are several. When you don't question how these things arise and why the media is giving so much attention to such small elements, you tend to fall into an us and them thing, which of course we know divide and conquer works great. But for me, it's more a matter of, if one is going in that direction, have they really looked at the water supply, estrogen
Right.
thing? Is it possible that they do not know yet, being young, that many of these movements that are spawned in the name of free individuality are actually being bankrolled and created by very large foundations like the Clinton Foundation, the Bill Gates Foundation, et cetera. So, how deeply have they really looked into this? Instead, they jump to the personal. This is my life. This is, my sexuality. This is very, very important, etc. Same thing. Every issue that distracts us from the advent of transhumanism, to me, it just seems that you need to scratch down a few levels in order to see if this is being used to manipulate society and turn us against each other. This is the big thing to me, and that's why I'm on another track entirely. But I pay attention to these diversions and distractions, I call them. But often they do serve a transhumanist future, such as the LGBT.
Do you think this is probably being done also for population reduction? I mean, take a look at Japan. The birth rate there is less than 1.2 right now, which means that in the next 100 years, are we going to have any Japanese? And the same thing's happening in other places around the world. Even the United States, I think, is below 2.0 now. So is that a population reduction, what's behind the scenes? And maybe the estrogen is preventing people from being attracted to the other gender?
Yes, and it's turning males into females. But yeah, I very much do see a connection there. And if you think about it, not very deeply either, it makes sense that you would want to blame a lot of, as much as you possibly could, on too many people, so that then you could use that for vaccination programs that were really about something entirely different. For food programs that are really about something entirely different. So yes, I think that there are PhDs who have a cunning mind and are paid a great deal in order to find more and more aspects of this as they break down society and break down the human immune system and break down any sense of unity that we at one time had. Because we are in a nation state, or we're in a certain population base, or we're in a certain gender or age base. However you look at it, paranoia now, Mel, is my sixth sense. I don't trust anything without really taking another couple, 3 looks at it to see if this too is being used. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm looking at, and this is worldwide. I thought it was certain places, but I'm looking at China, birth rate. This is 2016, folks. China, birth rate, 1.62. Japan, 1.4. United States, 1.8. European Union as a group, 1.6. So if you have all these countries that have less than 2, and you need to have 2 point something in order for your country to thrive in the future and to continue, what's going to happen? Is it the young people are going to be supporting the elderly?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're headed to transhumanism, and their plan is to do this in one more generation, no longer, at the most 20 years. Because now, of course, it used to be a generation was 30 years. Now they say it's 20 years. So 20 years. They're moving at a lightning pace now. And when I say they, I have to say that, I have a theory, it's just a theory, that if you sacrifice your humanity, what I call your humanity, that would be your moral fiber, that would be your conscience, that would be your caring for other human beings to some degree as you care for yourself. It would have to do not with nationalism, but would have to do with something global, perhaps, but a sentiment that that goes further than yourself and takes into account that your actions or the actions of the corporation you work for are going out and doing something, and that you, to some degree, are responsible for that, and you can't just say, well, I just do my job. I just do what I'm told. If you give all that up and you just do what you're told, and it doesn't matter what the value of it is in a moral sense or an ethical sense, does not matter, then you have sacrificed what really makes a human being quite different. A lot of people think a human being is different in the sense that we have these brains. And certainly the brain is extraordinary, but what being human is has something to do with something indelible, something eternal, possibly, something that goes beyond time and space. And if you give that up, then to me, we're now falling back on the very famous natural law, which says, nature abhors a vacuum. A vacuum has been created in a human being when they forsake all of these things I've named, and now they are simply a tool for the influences around them. Now, the vacuum will be filled by something. And you can call it a demon, you can call it an alien, you can call it a force, you can call it anything you want, even, your handler's personality, your CEO's personality, whatever you want to say. But this has now left the realm that was intended for the human being. And when I'm talking about intention, now, of course, I'm getting into the metaphysics of being human. We don't come here arbitrarily. I don't believe that. I have never had that experience that it is arbitrary, that it is accidental, that it is something that my will and my intention have no play in. As I look back on my life, I'm now 72 years old. I see that there has been a great intentionality, a very big struggle in order to bring those intentions, those best of intentions, to the fore, because I had a very difficult childhood. I had very difficult things I was up against, but it is going up against those things with full human armor, full human ability that gives you the power by which you can overturn those things and turn the straw into gold, basically. So this is the key to being human to me. Now, I'm in a world where many people have lots of different ideas on being human, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It isn't like I want to be king and everybody's got to go my way. But what I cannot abide are the people, seemingly people, who turn against humanity and want to destroy humanity in favor of machines, in favor of AI systems, in favor of some sort of incredible ability, but nobody home who really did it themselves. I just can't go for that, and I'm going to have to resist that, and that is still my prerogative. Because based on nature abhors a vacuum, I have to assume there are other entities at work here, not to mention the ones we've breathed in and are alive in us on some sort of scale of consciousness, as the nanobots are. If you read about nanotechnology, you will soon find that the swarm mentality of nano particles, of nanobots, is extraordinary, and it completely confounds scientists because it is a form of consciousness. And these nanos, who are now on, a billionth of a meter level, they seem to have a consciousness of their own, a swarm consciousness, a hive consciousness. And that in itself, to have those alive in us, what does that mean for our freedom? What does that mean? This is not like a parasite. This is something different. And that's what I'm pursuing in this third book, is what are these things that now have full, are moving through my body and my brain, and are in touch with various electromagnetic centers, which can program and move them, cause them to self-replicate, cause them to do feats in various parts of the body, move them from one part of the body to another part of the body. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, Mel. That's how the transhumanist brain-computer interface is going to come. It's coming through what we already have in our bodies that we breathed from the chemical trails, the rocket trails, the drone trails, the food, the GMO food, the vaccinations that they're plying our children with, the unbelievable scale. So that's the key, and that I did not know 2 years ago even. I did not know that, but I know it now.
And we have to take a one and only break, but let me just say this. When I think of what we discussed before, the nuking of the atmosphere, this is something that you would think we would do if we were trying to, say, terraform Mars. Nuking the atmosphere there and perhaps, create an atmosphere. But the same thing happens if you look at another planet. Let's say a planet with 7 billion people. And I'll get your reaction on the other side. If we needed to vacate planet Earth to go to that other place, what will we do? Well, if we really had to go there, but we couldn't take over because it's inhabited and they won't allow us, what did the powers that want to be would do? Well, if they're patient, they would try to get rid of the population there. Slowly chemtrail it, use certain people, plant certain individuals within the governments and industry, and start slowly to depopulate, lower the birth rates to the point of extinction. And guess what? You take over, and all the assets are still there for you to take. But I'll get your answer on the other side. How can people buy your first 2 books, and when is the new book coming out?
Oh, you want me to tell you that now?
Yes, just tell us the books, yes.
Yes, the books. That you can get them at Amazon. You can order them directly from the publisher, Feral House. And you can go to my Elana Freeland site and you can order one there. And, it will come. Yeah.
Great. Folks, don't go anywhere. This is Mel Fabregas. My special guest today is Elana Freeland. A lot more to discuss when we come back. And welcome back to Veritas. I'm Mel Fabregas, and my special guest today is Elana Freeland. I presented a scenario regarding nuking the atmosphere, perhaps vacating planet Earth to go to another planet, and what we would do. Conventional wisdom, I'm just using my conventional wisdom, what we would do to inhabit that planet and just basically get rid of the population. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Doesn't that seem to be what's happening right now? Lowering the birth rates, creating disease. All these nanobots could be used for good. I guarantee you that they could be used for curing cancer, going to tumors and eradicating tumors. But of course, that they're not going to do that. Your thoughts on this scenario?
I think that, if just talking about planet Earth, I think that there is a great deal of excitement in the scientific community and the telecoms that go with that. All telecom industry is really a military contractor. They are not simply in it for profits. They have to obey the military specs when they are putting up all this hardware for a wireless world and to maintain the ionized atmosphere. So I think they're very excited. They have never had the technology to this point. They have had this dream of full spectrum dominance for a long, long time. And they have also had the dream of how to rule the masses and not need to control so many aspects of society in order to do it. So I think that the ones at the very top are the ones who know these things and realize where this is going, and they are they are pursuing it with gusto. As far as killing everyone and getting rid of them, I think that I'm one of the people that feels that this would be very easy to do right now if they wanted to do it. And I think they do some of it by running the hurricanes and the earthquakes and other weather devices going on. But really, they're so taken with the technology that they want to use us primarily as guinea pigs and to see exactly what does what to us as they build and construct and improve their artificial intelligence entities. They have, as you know, through the BRAIN project and all the things that we've had for the last 50 years, including MK Ultra, all of this has gone into building sort of retro engineering the human brain in a machine version. And now they're working very hard, and you don't hear much about it, but if you pay attention in science journals and even popular journals supposedly about science, you will see that they are concentrating very, very heavily on the brain-computer interface now, or the brain-machine interface, whichever one you want to use. And this is because this nano technology I've described has gone out and into our systems and is working there and is ready and willing to be controlled remotely for various undertakings. And that's where it may get really heavy. You might have some sort of rebellions and revolutions and people, zombification and all sorts of things may be rising up in the future ahead of us because of how this technology is set up. But as far as controlling the masses in order to get rid of them, I don't see the logic of that. The masses provide a lot of things in this unfolding drama, but the one thing I know they want is to be able to control the masses. Absolutely. I'm not talking 20%. I'm not even talking 80%. I'm talking absolutely control, where the masses simply do not even know they're being controlled. And for that, Mel, I don't know if you remember some of the old Star Trek episodes in which they would go to planets where that was going on. People did not know they were being controlled. They were happy campers with, next to nothing or whatever. But as far as any other planet and the elite preparing to go to another planet, I'm sure that some of them are. I'm sort of stodgy in that, and a student of Rudolf Steiner. To me, this planet and humanity are joined at the hip. This is our planet, and it is a very unique planet indeed, with a tremendous life force.
No, that was my point. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was my point about my proposal of terraforming something else. Because let's say that you have let's call it what it is. Let's say it's an extraterrestrial entity that's passing by and saying, well, that planet Earth looks really nice, but we need to have strontium, barium, aluminum, less oxygen, and this chemical compositions for us to be able to survive there. Let's do it slowly. You see what I mean? Yeah,
I see. And I can't, it goes against my how my mind works to import an ET or someone from Alpha Centauri or whatever. But what does not go against the grain for me is my idea of nature abhors a vacuum. So imagine that in all these elites, and I'm thinking here of, remember that banker fellow, Ronald Bernard, I think his name was. Ronald Bernard was a banker, and he came forward and confessed. He's Dutch, as I recall. He came forward and confessed. He would describe these terrible rites that he witnessed and how he brought his conscience out of cold storage and revivified it and regained his humanity to where he wept in his interview about how lost he had been. This is the key, is that if there are entities that are moving into people's bodies through the vacuum that they have created by disallowing their own morality and ethics and greatness as the human being in service to all of humanity and all of life, etc., then that I completely see. But as far as using, the terraforming of the planet can very much be the people, if you want to, I don't know, are they people? Do they have entities in them? I can't answer that question, but the ones like Ray Kurzweil from Singularity University who really want a planet devoid of life, devoid of nature's role that nature has played for beyond millennia, for millions of years, and devoid of any god other than man himself, and of course we know which man it's going to be, the elite man, the globalist, then yes, we definitely can see terraforming going on as they blast and pillage. I mean, when I had to live through the researching of the Paradise, California fire, and at the same time was in touch with a wonderful woman in Portugal whose community had gone through a similar fire to the one in Paradise and the one in Santa Rosa, California, the year before, within a day or two of the one in Santa Rosa, California. I mean, what can I say? Was that just serendipitous that those two fires that were identical and certainly were not normal fires, but were directed energy weapon fires, that they just happened to happen in Portugal and California at about the same latitude? No, I mean, this has intent written all over it. But who are these people, and are they still human beings, or are they completely infiltrated by intelligences, AI systems, whatever you want to say, that have no dog in the fight for humanity, because they are not human?
I remember.
And that I can believe.
I remember years ago I was talking to somebody else who told me, remember 9/11? There was a Hurricane Aaron there that the media hardly reported. Well, the atmosphere in that area was completely charged. All of a sudden, those powers disappeared. And she told me, in the future, if you start seeing these towers, this is probably about over 10 years ago, you see these towers being erected in your towns, just imagine something. If they start spreading aluminum around, basically you're creating the atmosphere, you charge it like a microwave. All you need to do is turn on a switch, and unless you're underground, it's going to be microwave an entire city. What happened in California, what's the name of that town that recently burned like it was microwaved?
Paradise?
The Paradise, correct. Exactly the scenario that happened in Paradise. Let's say you have a town that's completely subversive to the powers that want to be, or the party in control. And it's a threat to them because, we just need to get rid of them. All of a sudden, that happens. Oh, I'm sorry. It was just a forest fire. Plausible deniability.
Yes, and you might even choose that town because of its name.
A Paradise.
Yes. I mean, this game is played all the time. If you start looking at these false flag events and start noticing the names and the numbers in these, I mean, these are the secret societies that John F. Kennedy attempted to warn us of in 1961, and then was quietly gotten out of the way 2 years later. So there's something going on that I can't say it's alien. I can't import aliens. I can just deal with humanity and the vacuum that exists inside some of these technocrats that seems to me to be very much terraforming and creating a separate world, an undermined world. The other argument we need to bring in here, Mel, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I have to mention it.
Sure.
Is here in the United States, of course, there are people who believe that there is a war going on in Washington, D.C. between the Trump forces, because he was not supposed to win that election, and the Clinton, Bush, Obama forces.
It seems like it. Like a Gladio situation.
And I would say that because I've been 9 years in this geoengineering movement, 9 years, I can't believe it. I would say that this technology is not at all run by Trump forces in the least. That there is a group that out of NASA would be my guess, because NASA is not what it seems, out of NASA that really runs this program and seeks destruction for destruction's sake at the same time that they're seeking experimental new possibilities of how to do things, like the recent Hurricane Dorian. They did some new things with it. Again, it was all about control, similar to Aaron, the hurricane offshore on 9/11. 18 years ago, that hurricane was there. I mean, I knew that even then. That hurricane was there for energy in case they needed it, because that was a directed energy weapons collapse that happened. Yes, there were probably demolitions that were secondary, but only secondary. And today is 9/11. Thank you for having me on this very special day. I have not forgotten it in the least. And so that there are technocrats who have been completely usurped and are no longer human. And I think they know this. I think a lot of them know it because of how they have no feelings, maybe even for their families, for their children. It's a very difficult journey when you are a materialist who believes in scientism, not necessarily real science, but scientism. You believe in it, you're a materialist, you don't believe there's any spiritual world, you don't believe there's any divinity anywhere. The human being is a meat package and can be used however you wish to use it. How do you then live a life with that outlook, which is what Erich Fromm, the great psychoanalyst, would have called necrophilia, the love of death, not the love of life. And that is certainly happening. And it's happening even with whole generations now who are addicted to the cell phone and, in my opinion, are being pulsed with feelings that are along this line and thought forms that are all derogatory to. I can't count the number of people who blame humanity for just about everything. Well, everything they don't blame Trump for, they blame humanity for. And yet, when you really look at human history, which most Americans have no knowledge of history or geography, you realize that there have been some astonishingly great periods of human development. But for the little man, for the peasant, the proletarian, it has been very scarce. And this was the great hope for America, wasn't it? I mean, it was what we were built on, was this desire to bring the little man up. And now look at what's happening. They're just being treated like lab rats. I mean, one nice thing is we're all being treated like lab rats now. And that would include even those elites that you were mentioning earlier, who are suffering the same air, the same water, the same food, not really. And they certainly raise their children very differently from how the plebeians are taught to raise their children. Still, we are all in this because this is our air that we're talking about. This is not just one little geographic area. This is the air. And all of this, it has a definite terraforming aspect to it, but it is not just about terraforming. It is really, the plum of this assault, and it is definitely an assault, definitely a war. The plum is the human mind and soul. I know that. That is real plum.
Look at something. Trump is always looking for ways to save unnecessary spending, which I agree with. He's a billionaire, and he has his own airplanes. He knows how much it costs to fly an airplane, let alone hundreds flying every day, spreading who knows what. You would think he would have looked into that. What this shows me, the fact that he hasn't mentioned this, it shows me that there's a supranational organization out there that has to transcend national boundaries or interests, and evidently he has no say about it.
Yes, he has no say. That's the important part. And the fact that he's always harping on money, that has to do with the people who put him in office. This did not happen overnight. It's just that some people were taken by surprise because they thought that it was simply he was going to be run for president and would lose because they had all the back doors to all the software for the election. But instead, someone somewhere, this is my opinion, just an opinion, someone somewhere made a decision that they were sick and tired of that cabal that we had had since John Kennedy's assassination, because George H.W. Bush was the CIA agent in charge of the 3-shooter teams in Dallas. And he's been rewarded 6 ways to Sunday with all his offspring, etc. So this Trump thing was given a green light when the other half didn't know that it wasn't red anymore. And so then that's created all this drama that's gone on in the United States, which has been terrific as a distraction from geoengineering, by the way, and from the fact that, we need to really look at some very endemic situations that follow from our health basically disappearing, and the medical industry and big pharma running everything, being rich beyond their wildest imaginations, and yet we are completely consumed now by Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophilia thing, which is the favorite instrument of blackmail by the CIA, always has been, always will be, and yet, we're all just, it's always throwing something into the pit, and then we all scavenger and are all over the place to figure out what happened and who did what, and that addiction to drama that television has built in the American is just unbelievable to me. It's no wonder people can't retain their thinking and can't retain a thought, and that their cell phones are exactly what they don't need in order to build an ability to think. Think about it, Mel. Are you going to be able to have a republic or a democratic republic of any sort when you can't think? Of course you can't. Then you can't talk. And so, to me, I'm really trying to let go of the whole nation thing, as Trump is here to make America great again. Well, whatever that means, looks like it means money, looks like it means cash flow to the people that put him in office. But, there are times when he is attempting to do something to improve the lot of the most vulnerable. And, as soon as he came into office, I had a bit of a high hope. I never allow myself too much, that because he had quite several thousand pedophiles arrested within the first month or two of his regime, and now we have this latest Epstein thing going on. But always, if you are a student of history, you realize that often there are pedophile purges like the one Belgium went through in the 90s around Marc Dutroux and the elites, most of whom, by the way, were big pharma families, who were, of course, deeply involved in his pimping. But it's at least something that isn't just status quo. And, you treat children like this. What kind of adults are you thinking you're going to have tomorrow? If children are so expendable and so brutally used and allowed to be used by a society, all the way back to Vienna in the late 19th century, when Freud was practicing there, it was rampant then too. So you think about how to run a society and how to dismantle a society. Well, of course, you're going to have a lot of pedophilia, a lot of Satanism, which is, the opposite of Christianity, and you're going to, you're going to pursue it one thing at a time as you dismantle the entire social fabric, so that the human being is absolutely vulnerable and absolutely up for merging with a machine. I mean, that's how I see they're going. Not eradicating populations necessarily, though I'm sure they wouldn't blink twice to think of using Ebola or something to knock out a quarter of Africa. It's that immoral, amoral vacuum that has somehow, through materialism, taken over our thinkers. And we are incapable in the United States of seeing how to stop that. And so we get busy over here and we get busy over there, and we, and it's too big of a nation. It's way too big. So how do we deal with this? Well, for me, I'm just putting out my little bit to see if this will help several thousand people, and that's about all I see that I can do.
I cannot agree with you more about that, because it's the people who come to listen to you and to my radio platform, and I thank them all the time for doing that, because I know it gets lonely out there. Elana, you probably know this. If you start talking about this out there to the main public, they tune you out, they roll their eyes, and I don't know that I can say I'm done with that. My job is to convey this information through this platform and make it grow this way with people that are really interested in the truth. But I see my biggest concern is the zombified population that is tuned to the 9 to 5 matrix. And I know they have to work, but turning on the news and just getting all that information from their digital TV, 60 inches, 90 inches, it keeps growing and growing, and more programming comes because they want you to be mesmerized and hypnotized by that.
Yeah.
But what is the end game here? Because I look at China, and you probably are following the Sesame Social score that they have there.
Right.
That is coming to the United States. They're already talking about having the red flag laws in the United States for gun control being implemented by using something similar to the social score. And in my opinion, where did they get that technology? I don't think China is that advanced when it comes to that. It's those H-1B visas of the people that come here to MIT, to Stanford, then they go back there. They work in Silicon Valley for a while, and they go back to China with that technology, and that's what they have. And we have that here. The question is, when are they going to roll it out?
Right. Yeah, and that idea of total control, full spectrum dominance, I can't not have the experiences I've had in life, and I know that this is one life. This is my one life. It is not my only life. But if you feel that this is your only life, the only life you will ever have, then yes, I can see where it's too great a burden to bear, that you're born in a particular class, you're born without perhaps without resources by which you could change things even in your small community. You see nothing but limitation around you. You have no sense of the caliber of soul that moves mountains, like Jesus talked about. Is it true? Is it just a metaphor? That's kind of how I think. For me, it is no metaphor. I don't know why I'm like this. It isn't like I'm some sort of saint caliber or something. But I know that humanity is drawn forward in whatever consciousness evolution it can claim en masse. And that's very difficult because we're each individual and we have individual lives and we don't know each other and all sorts of things. But as we move forward, the consciousness of humanity today is very unlike the consciousness of those who listen to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey being recited as poetry. Well, we have a very different consciousness today. So consciousness changes, but we have so many decisions about what we're going to subject that consciousness to. I mean, that's why I don't have a TV, Mel, is I just cannot submit my mind to that morass of programming. I remember reading in 1980, I read the 1977 book by Jerry Mander called Four Arguments for the Elimination of Television. Fantastic book, fantastic. Opened my eyes to all sorts of things about.
In 1977, imagine what he would say now.
Exactly, and he had a sense of humor. He talked about Dr. John Ott's light experimentation. He talked about TV from many angles. And of course, I had not had a TV up to then, and I continued to not have a TV. But the idea of sitting and listening to someone program me, I mean, it's kind of why I probably would never go to church, because I don't want to hear some guy up there programming me. And that's why I didn't do the PhD program. I don't want to listen to a bunch of men lecturing me again. I've had it up to here with men lecturing me on how to think and how to do this and that. So, for me, it's about how can I find my own thoughts? Well, I read, and I've been a reader my whole life. And reading is, yes, you're still subject to the author, but you're moving your eyes across the page, and you can turn back 6 pages to see what he said there and think about it. You can lay the book down. You're not subject to having it go in through your retina and put you in alpha wave central, which is mind control frequency. So I've made conscious decisions as I've gone along. And it's the same thing with the cell phone, right? Same general thinking. So why can't people do this? Well, if they think this is the only life, then they're going to want you in your show to have something entertaining and light and make them feel good about themselves. Why not, but you can get that from a hot fudge sundae. I don't think that a show which is attempting to grapple with ideas and events on the earth that we all have to grapple with at some level, I don't think it's a good use of time to just entertain. I don't, unless the entertainment is like, I'm really fond of Bill Hicks, who's dead
sure.
now. But he and George Carlin,
yeah,
were really philosophers who did it through being funny. But it was dark humor. It was not always funny, but it was a kind of humor that made you think. And that's what Rudolf Steiner did for me, is he made me realize, thinking is not an intellectual activity. It's a spiritual activity. And you can dig in and find things out about the life process and how complex it is, how multi-leveled it is, how important it is to your development, how how important it is to history, a real history, not the one written by the winners. So, I don't see spending my life looking for hidey holes and entertainment as being a really good use of the brief amount of time I have on this earth in just this life. And for me, because I experienced that I had reincarnated, I was 8 years old when I had my first experience of who I'd been. And I didn't have anyone to talk to about it, so I didn't mention it for many years. But I knew who it was, and it didn't occur to me that it was impossible because we don't believe in reincarnation.
Right.
Well, I knew who I was, and it helped me to know. Why did it happen to me? It's not because I'm spiritually inclined, particularly. Well, that's not quite true, but I don't know why it happened to me, but it did, and of course I did not betray it and say, "Oh well, that was an 8-year-old." No, an 8-year-old doesn't know anything. No, I knew things, more things then than maybe I even know to this day. But I've made them more conscious through my thinking. These are important things, folks. This is your life you're talking about here. This is not Couch Potato City. And believe me, our masters of the universe who are running all of this, the telecoms, the militaries, everything, they want us to not think much of humanity because they want that human drama over. They want us to be machines. Get it straight. This is what they want. And this is what I will not lie down for. I want people to be able to choose and have the burden of free choice, free will, until the day they die. And if they choose to be a couch potato and sit there and eat a quart of ice cream every day and watch the boob tube and lower their IQ, I want them to have the right to do that. I don't want to run anybody's life. And that's what they want. They're in our heads already.
Well, look what's happening in certain parts of the United States, Massachusetts and Michigan, I believe. They have this new mosquito disease, and they're telling people not to leave their homes after dusk. There you go. Well, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but this is a way for people and parents to say, no, everybody stay home after dusk, and everybody has to stay watching their TV. But you mentioned Epstein, and I was looking at your book here, the Promise software, which turned into Prism. Robert Maxwell, the scandal that happened with Robert Maxwell because using that software to entrap people. The story of Mordecai Vanunu. What do you know about the Promise software, now Prism, and how is it related to what we're discussing?
Oh, well, the back door. I mean, the person to really ask about that, I think, is Catherine Austin Fitts, the investment analyst. She's terrific on that.
Yeah, she's been on the show.
Great. I adore her. I absolutely adore her. So for me, I spent a lot of time researching on the Promise software, the Inslaw software thing that our Justice Department stole from that fellow. And now it's a done deal. Everywhere I turn, Mel, if I'm reading in any depth whatsoever about any particular programs or software in various corporations, there's that back door. I mean, this has given them the keys to the kingdom, this back door. It's unbelievable. And they were able to keep it secret because how do they keep it secret? Well, the same way they keep this geoengineering thing and the weaponizing of our entire environment right in front of our faces. It's how they keep it that secret. They tell everyone it's a conspiracy theory to think otherwise.
It's an extortion factory. That's what Epstein was. That's what Promise is. That's why all these things, the Franklin scandal, it's nothing but an extortion factory. If they cannot bribe you, if they cannot extort you, if you're goody two shoes, too clean, they will not put you in power. Period.
Oh, they'll kill you.
They subvert you or they will destroy you. Period.
That's right. And I know you know, but I'm going to say it. you know that the whole pedophilia thing is about blackmail.
Of course. Again, it's an extortion factory.
Yes, that's the extortion factory. I mean, pedophilia is the rock of the extortion factory.
Right.
It's really the main thing, because if a guy is not a real pedophile, they just slip him a drug like curare, and he'll do whatever he's told to do, and then they'll film it. So it's a horror. I mean, is that evil? Am I missing something here that I have to defend the idea of evil living in this world? That is evil.
When it comes to the end game, nanobots, artificial intelligence, what are they trying to do? I mean, I mentioned the Sesame Score, where they're controlling people, without having to recur to another Tiananmen Square. It's a different story with what's happening in Hong Kong. I wish some of these people here that are wearing the Che Guevara shirts would learn from the people in Hong Kong, because they see what's coming to them.
Yeah. I mean, we're in such a different era from the Tiananmen Square, and I think the powers that be always wanted to have a way to control where they wouldn't have to always plan and run these false flag, these sleeper shooters, these kids that, they wind up with antipsychotics and
right.
antidepressants and sent on their way. They want a way that people are being programmed and don't even know it. Now, the TV already meets that. A lot of people don't realize. They think that subliminals were made illegal years ago, and for some reason they think that really matters. I don't know how they think that.
Oh, you mean the movie theater is telling you to go and buy some Coca-Cola and fries and pizza, right? And they,
yeah.
right.
But beyond the Coca-Cola, beyond the commodities that they're pushing, are other things that are subliminal, attitudes that you should have, attitudes that you shouldn't have. All of that is under the music that kids are listening to, and it's also under all the television shows that are going on. So there's so much. It's like the glacier that you see. You see the tip of the glacier above the water, and underneath is this giant behemoth of a glacier. That's kind of the mind control piece that has been asserted against this nation in particular, and certainly Europe and all other nations. But in the United States, we kind of had this programming that we underwent that, we were a democratic nation and freedom, you could be free here and blah, blah, blah. But of course, very little of that was true. It still was the nation of the only Bill of Rights anywhere. And that has now been gutted. The last to go are the First and Fourth Amendments. But to imagine that you could control people and they wouldn't know it, that would be the best of all things. So use the TV, use the cell phones, subliminals, pulse the cell phones from a distance with various frequencies that impact moods. The first time I saw this, Mel, and I can't prove it in a court of law, but do you remember when we had the Ferguson, Missouri shooting of a black kid?
Sure.
And the neighbors were upset, rightfully so. Everybody was upset. But 2 days or so later, they went bananas. They went violent. I mean, like, boom. And my first thought was, wow, they got pulsed. And that's how I see it now, is political movements in the streets, like take Hong Kong, for example. Are those people being pulsed? See, that would be my first thought, is when it turns the corner from political dissent to violence and mania, not just of a few individuals, but a lot of individuals, not everybody, but a lot. Now you're in the realm of frequencies. And I think frequencies would be what I would say to your people listening is, it's time to pull out the books and the YouTubes that reteach you about frequency, about pulsing, about plasma, about all the things that they are using to control populations in a wireless world. I think it's time for us to really go through it, learn the terms, remember those numbers, what is a megahertz versus what's a gigahertz, and a terahertz and a petahertz, and, memorize those numbers. See if you can come up with an example of each that you can kind of hold on to as you begin to look around your world and see that the space fence lockdown has already happened to you, and you are already plugged in. So this is our defense, in my mind, is going to be through our consciousness. It's not going to be through your congressman or waiting for a Martin Luther King to come through the door, or anything that typically might have happened yesteryear. Today, it's going to be you becoming conscious of your chains and understanding how the chains work. And from there, we're all going to go somewhere else and figure out how we can combat this, because this is just the beginning of something that's going to last, they're planning on centuries.
Do you know the name Dr. Sebi, by the way?
Spell it?
Sebi, Dr. Sebi. He was a famous herbalist that died a couple of years ago under mysterious circumstances, as many other, over 100 by now, of alternative health practitioners who have died. But right. Prince, the artist, who also died in mysterious circumstances, even though people say that he was addicted to drugs, but he died in an elevator. And if you know the song, Let's Go Crazy, you'll see the lyrics, and it's exactly how he died. But anyway, Prince was following Dr. Sebi a lot, and I've seen, you can actually Google them, of interviews with Prince where he's actually very awake, or was very awake, talking about chemtrails. And something that Dr. Sebi told him that he resonated with them was about violence in a lot of Black communities was done because of manganese being put in the water supply. You put manganese and everybody goes violent and crazy like this, just like what you just said about Ferguson.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm a big admirer of Prince. He was quite awake. He knew, and that's why they did him in.
Right.
No, I didn't know about Dr. Sebi. That's the name?
Sebi, S-E-B-I. And I think Michael Jackson, too. He was very awake. He knew what was going on in Hollywood. And, whether he was a pedophile or not, I'm not there. I wasn't there. I always say, why would anybody send their children to sleep in somebody's house on their own like that? I blame the parents a lot, too. Yeah, and I know someone who was programmed with Michael Jackson, and he was totally programmed his whole life. He had a very hard life. What else did I want to say? Chemically castrated, too, by the way. Technically? Chemically castrated by his own father. Yeah. So that he could keep that voice, high-pitched voice, but that's for a different program. So the end game for this, if they're trying to make us robots, obviously there will be out there people without the implants, and they're going to be the overlords, if you will, but they need the United States to fall. And in my opinion, this is why, and not all of the shootings are false flags, but a lot of them are, and you see it. They just want to take the guns, because when you take the guns, then you take the First Amendment, and then that's it. The end game. Second Amendment. Correct. If you lose the Second Amendment, you lose the First Amendment. Yeah, well, we've lost the First Amendment. True. But, what did you say that I didn't agree with? I just want to be clear again, Mel. It's really important. There will be no people who don't have implants. There will be none, because we're all breathing, and we're breathing them in. Are you speculating here, Elana, that perhaps this technocracy, truly, if you had to define the word, we might have a computer ruling the government, and every decision, there's not going to be any human interaction. It's going to be black and white. Is that what we're going to be? A computer overlord in the future, an all-seeing eye, if you will?
Oh, an AI, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the only people who might not be, it might be that your implants, we all have them, but it might be that your implants are not activated because of your inner circle connections. So you may actually be a free agent.
I see.
But they would still have the option to activate your implants and turn you into a slave. So that's how the implants are going to work. I mean, I know there will be special implants for various things for a while, but eventually we're going to have them all in us. And we're going to be roboticized to be with various brain-computer interfaces. You know, walk into somebody's house, they have the Internet of Things is all nice there. The dishwasher's talking to the washing machine is talking to the toaster, etc. It all sounds kind of silly, but the truth is that they're all on a network, and that network now knows where you are, who you are, knows what nanobots you have in your body, and can relay all of that information to a nearby fusion center. And if anyone's looking for you, they'll know where to get you immediately. So that's the level of slavery we're talking about.
I saw that, Elana, in 1984. I don't know if you remember, if you followed the World Fair. In 1984, it was in New Orleans, and I went there. And AT&T at the time had a place for you to go and see. They had a futuristic home. And they had a computer where you could actually order clothing and shoes and what we see at Amazon today, 1984. Yeah. And then you would just say, turn on the lights, dim the lights, turn on the jacuzzi, whatever. This is 1984. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is what a great future. And right now, it's like, oh wow, this is incredible.
This is hell.
Right, exactly. I don't know that I want it.
Well, and weren't we naive then? I mean, it's just how it is that, they take advantage of our naivete and our assumption that the impulse is a good impulse to save us work so that we have more leisure time so that we can read the books that nobody reads anymore. Oh, my God.
What do you think is going to happen with the e-books? I mean, let's say your books, you have printed format and you have the e-formats also. What if in the future, do you see a Green New Deal that says by a certain time, all the books that are in printed format will have to be burned, or we'll never have books again because we need to save the planet? Only e-books. What tells you that somebody sees your books in 10 years and says, chapter 4, Elana, I think that we need to remove that, and then people in the future won't be able to see it?
Yes. I think any of the above will happen because, truthfully, very few people read because they simply can't concentrate anymore, Mel. They can't.
Short attention span, right.
Yes, I mean, they've lost it. And this is what happens after 50 plus years of television and cell phones and all of the wireless gewgaws all around us is we lose the capability. I mean, reading and writing, as I well know, are muscular activities, and you must keep up with them in order to keep flexing your muscle and get better and keep strong. You can't just, it's not like riding a bicycle where you just pick it up one day and boom, there you go. So I don't know what to say. Who am I writing these books for? I'm writing them for the future, 40, 50 years down the road, when finally there's some sort of cataclysm or somebody wakes up and says, why the heck wasn't anybody talking about this back then? And then they find these little teeny books, because no one else is writing about this stuff. I don't know why.
I mentioned this back when we had to 2.5 years ago, but so when someone tells me No, Mel, they wouldn't experiment on the people. I'd tell them to look back in our history. Radiation experiments, Agent Orange, vaccine experiments, the Tuskegee experiments, the Gulf War syndrome, where this is happening even right now, this 1991, with all these soldiers that impregnated their wives, and I hate to sound graphic, but impregnate their wives, that semen is radioactive. Now the wife gets cancer. Now the offspring gets some kind of mutation. The grandchildren, and this is something that the United States military has very, very quiet.
Yeah, you're right. Not to mention the suicide rate of the U.S. Air Force pilots.
22 per day military suicides.
Yeah, I feel sad about that.
So the new book, what can we expect on the new book?
This is the, let me give you the title. I'm going to have to dig it up because I don't know it by heart. It's mainly about synthetic biology, but in order to do the synthetic biology part of it, I really have to talk about the smart city and how they've set up the smart city to be like a prison, a place that's fully armed, and they can control every aspect of your life, because the smart city is going to be where they work out the kinks on this complete lockdown. So the title of the book is Transhumanist Lockstep, Geoengineering and the Wireless Nightmare of Nanotechnology, Synthetic Biology, and Targeting.
Wow.
And that's the one subject we didn't cover today, was the targeting subject. It's huge, but that's all right. We can't cover everything.
Can you take a couple of minutes, because you have no idea how many people write to me. I don't know if some of them are suffering from mental disorder. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I get at least once a week, once every 2 weeks, somebody asking for help. I'm a targeted individual. And some of the things they say sound very compelling, Elana.
Oh, yeah. It's a huge industry, Mel. I would say that in the United States alone, we have at least 1.5 million people who are being targeted with electromagnetic directed energy weapons. And the reason is not just to kill them, because rarely are they killed. They're put into what is called a life program. And that means that they will remain in that program until they are either killed or they die of the program. And this is because a lot of experimentation is still going on to determine how the human brain works, how the response-reaction mechanisms work according to pain, according to fear, confusion. A lot of they're also, these targeted individuals are also used as a training ops for new agents coming into the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, the FBI, etc. And so how they are chosen is perhaps the greatest mystery. Certainly, they're choosing a lot of young people now. I'm definitely in touch almost on a daily level with someone in that category, and they're always testing new ways to terrify and torment and torture people. If ever you needed to imagine evil, I think you'd have to imagine this. Now, some of the operators who are on the laptops looking at the monitors of these torturing sessions, a lot of them are already slaves and already programmed to do just what they're doing, with the threat always being that it can get worse for them if they don't obey. But a lot of them are also geeks who are extremely interested in the technology and sort of put their conscience into the freezer, as Ronald Bernard described, in order to do this horrendous work, because they take copious notes. This is behavioral induction. This is, what was his name? There was a psychologist that was, who studied learned helplessness. That's what this is all about. It's huge, Mel. I remember when I was living in England about 10 years ago or more, a friend came over to visit me, and we were going to go up to Scotland to see a satanic ritual abuse survivors house where they could seek safety from the cults that were torturing them. And as we're coming back on the train, I'm trying to explain to her, she's a psychiatrist, trying to explain to her how this all works, this targeting thing. She can't believe it's going on. And suddenly the guy across the aisle says to us, I'm a targeted individual, and here's what they do to me, blah, blah, blah. And he went on and explained, amazing. He'd been targeted for 8 years at that point.
I hear that all the time, and I feel so bad for them because I'm not there to see what they're experiencing. I'm not going to judge them either. Oh, Martin Seligman, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's his learned helplessness.
Yes.
But I would say this, the best thing you can do for them is believe them.
Yes.
Because sure, it's going on. Absolutely sure. There is no question.
One last thing that I want to discuss, smart meters. Obviously, you are aware of them. At home, we received a letter from the electric utility company a couple of weeks ago saying that we're going to be upgrading your system to make it more efficient and blah, blah, blah. I knew where it was coming. So my wife is not into any of these topics, but I decided to delegate that on to her. And I said, I want you to read about smart meters. And these smart meters they happen to be outside of our daughter's bedroom. So read what they're all about. And if you believe me, take action. So she actually read and believed me. And she called the electric company. And she was told, fine, we will put a non-transmitting meter there, but you're going to have to pay $25 more a month. Have you heard this? And how do you get out of that?
Yeah, that's the typical way over here as well. But I'll tell you, beyond any doubt, no one wants to have a smart meter anywhere near them or their children.
Right.
Absolutely. If you have to pay $25 here, I think.
Oh, I don't care. Yes, right.
I think it's $75 here. I mean, it's horrible that they're now penalizing
per month. $75 per month where you are.
Yeah, well, I think that's what it is. Last I heard. Oh yeah, they're really socking. They really want that there because it's going to work in concert with the 5G.
Right.
And the Internet of Things. So yeah, there's nothing good I can say about smart meters. Some people are putting a mesh, like a colander over it. That seems to help, but then it's coming in through the wall on the other side. It's confusing to me.
Not only that, but if you put that little cage around the meter, is that going to be able to transmit to the electric company?
Yeah, apparently they claim it, that they won't be able to pick up what they need to, and that's why you're going to get charged more. But I never believe what they say. They're all military contractors, by the way. All utilities, all telecom corporations.
It's all Rothschild, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's worse than that. It's military. Don't do smart meters. I don't have to deal with it yet, but I'll get much more detailed once I do.
Great. Well, Elana, another great conversation with you. Can't wait for the new book to come out and hopefully have you again in a year, not 2, please.
Okay.
How can people buy the 2 books again, and when should they expect the new one?
Yeah, the 2 books can be gotten through Amazon, Evil Amazon, or ordered directly from the publisher, Feral House, or you can just ask your local bookstore to get in touch with their distributor and have the distributor find them, however it works. And then you can also order them on my elanafreeland.com blog site. And as far as the new book, I have to have it done, according to the publisher, by November in order to see it published next year. So sometime next year it will be out.
Did I hear that Adam Parfrey passed away? Or
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And that's a year ago, last September 10th. He had a heart attack and died immediately.
Right.
And that, by the way, was suspicious.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, because I heard a few people saying that the type of publisher he was, he was spreading the truth. I mean, he has people like you and other great people that we've interviewed, and this is something that goes against the powers that want to be. But Elana Freeland, thank you so much for coming back to Veritas. This is always your home.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you so much. Blessings on your work.
You too. And that was Elana Freeland. Thanks to you, Veritas member, for paving a truth journey another week.